A glorious people vibrated again. The lightning of the nations, liberty! From heart to heart, from tower to tower o'er Spain, scattering contagious fire into the sky gleamed. My soul spurned the chains of its dismay, and in the rapid plumes of song clothed itself sublime and strong, as the young eagle soars the morning clouds among, hovering in verse o'er its accustomed prey, till from its station in the heaven of fame the spirit's whirlwind wrapped it, and the ray of the remotest sphere of living flame which paves the void was behind it flung, as foam from a ship's swiftness, when there came a voice out of the deep. I will record the same. The sun and the serenest moon sprang forth. The burning stars of the abyss were hurled into the depths of heaven. The daedal earth, that island in the ocean of the world, hung in its cloud of all-sustaining air. But this divinest universe was yet a chaos and a curse, for thou wert not, but power from worst producing worse. The spirit of the beasts was kindled there, and of the birds, and of the watery forms, and there was war among them, and despair within them, raging without truce or terms. The bosom of their violated nurse groaned, for beasts warred on beasts, and worms on worms, and men on men. Each heart was a hell of storms. Man, the imperial shape, then multiplied his generations under the pavilion of the sun's throne. Palace and pyramid, temple and prison, to many a swarming million were, as to mountain wolves their ragged caves. This human living multitude was savage, cunning, blind, and rude, for thou wert not. But o'er the populous solitude, like one fierce cloud over a waste of waves, hung tyranny. Beneath sate deified the sister pest, congregator of slaves into the shadow of her pinions wide, anarchs and priests who feed on gold and blood, till with their stain their inmost souls are dyed, drove the astonished herds of men from every side. The nodding promontories and blue isles, and cloud-like mountains and Davidius waves of Greece basked glorious in the open smiles of favoring heaven. From their enchanted caves, prophetic echoes flung dim melody on the unapprehensive wild. The vine, the corn, the olive mild grew savage yet, to human use unreconciled. And like unfolded flowers beneath the sea, like the man's thought dark in the infant's brain, like aught that is which wraps what is to be, art's deathless dreams lay veiled by many a vein of Parian stone. And yet a speechless child verse murmured, and philosophy did strain her lidless eyes for thee, when o'er the Aegean main Athens arose, a city such as vision builds from the purple crags and silver towers of battlemented cloud, as in derision of kingliest masonry. The ocean floors pave it, the evening sky pavilions it. Its portals are inhabited by thunder-zoned winds, each head within its cloudy wings with sunfire garlanded. A divine work! Athens, diviner yet, gleamed with its crest of columns on the will of man as on a mount of diamonds set. For thou wert, and thine all-creative skill, peopled with forms that mock the eternal dead and marble immortality, that hill which was thine earliest throne and latest oracle. Within the surface of time's fleeting river, its wrinkled image lies as then it lay, immovably unquiet, and forever it trembles, but it cannot pass away. The voices of its bards and sages thunder with an earth-awakening blast through the caverns of the past. Religion veils her eyes, oppression shrinks aghast. A winged sound of joy and love and wonder, which soars where expectation never flew, rending the veil of time and space asunder. One ocean feeds the clouds and streams in dew. One sun illumines heaven. One spirit vast with life and love makes chaos ever new, as Athens doth the world with thy delight renew. Then Rome was, and from thy deep bosom fairest, like a wolf cub from a Cadmean Maenad, she drew the milk of greatness, though thy dearest from that Elgian food was yet unweaned. And many a deed of terrible uprightness by thy sweet love was sanctified. And in thy smile, and by thy side, saintly Camillus lived, and firm Attilius died. But when tears stained thy robe of vestal whiteness, and gold profaned thy Capitoline throne, thou didst desert with spirit-winged lightness the senate of the tyrants. They sunk prone, slaves of one tyrant. Palatinus sighed, faint echoes of Ionian song, that tone that didst delayeth to hear, lamenting to disown. From what Hyrcanian glen, or frozen hill, or piny promontory of the Arctic main, or utmost islet inaccessible, didst that lament the ruin of thy reign, teaching the woods and winds and desert rocks and every Neaid's ice-cold urn to talk in echoes, sad and stern, of that sublimest lore which man had dared unlearn. For neither did that watch the wizard flocks of the skald's dream, nor haunt the druid's sleep. What if the tears rained from thy scattered locks were quickly dried? For thou didst groan, not weep, when from its sea of death to kill and burn the Galilean serpent forth did creep, and made thy world an undistinguishable heap. 1,000 years the earth cried, "Where art thou?" And then the shadow of thy coming fell on Saxon Alfred's olive-cinctured brow, and many a warrior-peopled citadel, like rocks which fire lifts out of the flat deep, arose in sacred Italy, frowning o'er the tempestuous sea of kings and priests and slaves in tower-crowned majesty. That multitudinous anarchy did burst and sweep around their walls like idle foam, whilst from the human spirit's deepest deep, strange melody with love and awe struck dumb, dissonant arms, an art which cannot die, with divine wand traced in our earthly home, fit imagery to pave heaven's everlasting dome. Thou huntress swifter than the moon, thou terror of the world's wolves, thou bearer of the quiver, whose sun-like shafts pierce tempest-winged air, as light may pierce the cloud when they dissever in the calm regions of the orient day. Luther caught thy wakening glance like lightning from his leaden lance reflected. It dissolved the visions of the trance in which, as in a tomb, the nations lay. And England's prophets hailed thee as their queen in songs whose music cannot pass away, though it must flow forever. Not unseen before the spirit-sighted countenance of Milton didst thou pass, from the sad scene beyond whose night he saw with a dejected mien. The eager hours and unreluctant years, as on a dawn-illumined mountain stood, trampling to silence their loud hopes and fears, docking each other with their multitude, and cried aloud, "Liberty!" Indignation answered pity from her cave, death grew pale within the grave, and desolation howled to the destroyer, "Save!" when, like heaven's sun girt by the exaltation of its own glorious light, thou didst arise, chasing thy foes from nation unto nation like shadows, as if the day had cloven the skies at dreaming midnight o'er the western wave. Men started, staggering with a glad surprise, under the lightnings of thine unfamiliar eyes. Thou heaven of earth, what spells could pall thee then in ominous eclipse? 1,000 years, bred from the slime of deep oppression's den, dyed all thy liquid light with blood and tears, till thy sweet stars could weep the stain away. How, like bacchanals of blood round France, the ghastly vintage, stood destruction's sceptred slaves and folly's mitred brood, when one, like them, but mightier far than they, the anarch of thine own bewildered powers rose. Armies mingled in obscure array, like clouds with clouds, darkening the sacred bowers of serene heaven. He, by the past pursued, rests with those dead, but unforgotten hours, whose ghosts scare victor kings in their ancestral towers. England yet sleeps. Was she not called of old? Spain calls her now, as with its thrilling thunder Vesuvius wakens Etna, and the cold snow crags by its reply are cloven in sunder. O'er the lit waves, every Aeolian isle, from Pithecusa to Pelorus, howls and leaps and glares in chorus. They cry, "Be dim, ye lamps of heaven, suspend over us." Her chains were threads of gold, she need but smile and they dissolve. But Spain's were links of steel, till bit to dust by virtue's keenest file. Twins of a single destiny, appeal to the eternal years enthroned before us in the dim west. Impress as from a seal all ye have fought and done, time cannot dare conceal. Tomb of Arminius, render up thy dead, till like a standard from a watchtower's staff his soul may stream over the tyrant's head. Thy victory shall be his epitaph, wild bacchanal of truth's mysterious wine. King deluded Germany, his dead spirit lives in thee. Why do we fear or hope? Thou art already free. And thou, lost paradise of this divine and glorious world, thou flowery wilderness, thou island of eternity, thou shrine where desolation, clothed with loveliness, worships the thing thou wert. O Italy, gather thy blood into thy heart. Repress the beasts that have made their dens thy sacred palaces. Oh, that the free would stamp the impious name of king into the dust, or write it there, so that this blot upon the page of fame was a serpent's path, which the light air erases, and the flat sands close behind. Ye the oracle have heard, lift the victory-flashing sword, and cut the snaky knots of this foul Gordian word, which weak itself as stubble, yet can bind into a mass irreflexibly firm the axes and the rods which are mankind. The sound has poison in it, says the sperm of what makes life foul, cankerous, and abhorred. Disdain not thou, at thine appointed term, to set thine armed heel on this reluctant worm. Oh, that the wise would kindle such lamps within the dome of this dim world, that the pale name of priest might shrink and dwindle into the hell from which it first was hurled, a scoff of impious pride from fiends impure, till human thoughts might kneel alone, each before the judgment throne of its own aweless soul, or of the power unknown. Oh, that the words which make the thoughts obscure, from which they spring, like clouds of glimmering dew from a white lake, blood heaven's blue portraiture, were stripped of their thin masks and various hue, and frowns and smiles and splendors not their own, till in the nakedness of false and true they stand before their Lord, each to receive its due. He who taught man to vanquish whatsoever can be between the cradle and the grave, crowned him the king of life. Oh, vain endeavor, if on his own high will, a willing slave, he has enthroned the oppression and the oppressor. What if earth can clothe and feed amplest millions at their need, and power and thought be as the tree within the seed? Or what if art, an ardent intercessor, diving on fiery wings to nature's throne, checks the great mother, stooping to caress her, and cries, "Give me thy child, dominion over all height and depth"? If life can breed new wants and wealths from those who toil and groan, rend of thy gifts and hers 1,000-fold for one. Come thou, but lead out of the inmost cave of man's deep spirit, as the morning star beckons the sun from the eon wave wisdom. I hear the pennons of her car, self-moving like cloud charioted by flame. Comes she not, and come ye not, rulers of eternal thought, to judge with solemn truth life's ill-apportioned lot, blind love and equal justice, and the fame of what has been, the hope of what will be? Oh, liberty! If such could be thy name, wert thou disjoined from thee, or they from these? If thine or theirs were treasures to be bought by blood or tears, have not the wise and free wept tears, and blood like tears? The solemn harmony paused, and the spirit of that mighty singing to its abyss was suddenly withdrawn. Then, as a wild swan went sublimely winging its path through the thunder smoke of dawn, sinks headlong through the aerial golden light on the heavy sounding plain, when the bolt has pierced its brain, as thunder clouds dissolve unburthened of their rain, as a far taper fades with fading night, as a brief insect dies with dying day, my song, its pinions disarrayed of might, drooped. Oh, it closed the echoes far away of the great voice which did its flight sustain. As waves which lately paved his watery way hiss round the drowner's head in their tempestuous play.